I was standing in my bridal suite, barefoot on the cold wooden floor, staring at myself in the mirror when my wedding planner walked in. She closed the door softly behind her, like she was trying not to disturb something fragile. Her face said everything before she even spoke. "Maya," she said quietly, "your parents just called." I smiled instinctively, the way I always did when my parents were mentioned, trained over years to expect disappointment but pretend otherwise. "Are they running late?" I asked. She hesitated. That pause felt longer than it actually was. "They said they're not coming." The room went silent. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just stood there in my wedding dress, bouquet trembling slightly in my hands, while the words settled into my chest like something heavy and permanent. "They're not coming." In that moment, I realized something painful but clarifying. This wasn't a shock, it was confirmation. My name is Maya. I'm 26 years old, and my entire life I've been preparing for this exact kind of abandonment without realizing it. Growing up, I was the other daughter, not the difficult one, not the loud one, not the emotional one. I was the easy one, the responsible one, the one my parents never worried about because my younger sister Vanessa worried them enough for the entire household. Vanessa was sensitive. That was the word my parents used, over and over again, like a rule written into our family constitution. Sensitive meant she needed more patience, more attention, more forgiveness, more protection. And I learned very early that loving Vanessa meant shrinking myself. If Vanessa wanted the bigger bedroom, I gave it up. If she cried during my birthday dinner, my cake was cut early so we could leave. If she failed an exam, the house went quiet out of respect. When I succeeded, my achievements were acknowledged briefly, like footnotes. When Vanessa didn't get into her first choice university, my parents booked her a 2-week trip to Paris to help her heal. When I graduated with honors after working 2 part-time jobs to pay tuition, my parents took me to Olive Garden and reminded me to order something affordable. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself independence was strength. I told myself I didn't need their approval. But deep down, I still hoped that one day, just once, they would choose me without conditions. By my early 20s, I stopped asking for help altogether. I became a freelance graphic designer, built my own client list, paid my own rent, fixed my own problems. I learned how to survive quietly. Then I met Daniel. Daniel didn't see me as low maintenance. He saw me as someone who deserved care. He listened when I spoke. He noticed when I went quiet. He never made me feel like love was something I had to earn by being convenient. When he proposed, there were no cameras, no audience, no performance, just the two of us, a ring and a promise that we would never make each other feel small. Planning our wedding felt like the first time I allowed myself to want something fully. We chose a garden venue with warm lights and wooden chairs. We planned food we actually liked, music that meant something to us, a guest list filled with people who had shown up for us over the years. It wasn't extravagant, but it also wasn't modest enough to disappear. 3 weeks before the wedding, we invited my parents and Vanessa to dinner. I was nervous, but hopeful. I talked about the venue, the ceremony, Daniel's parents flying in early to help. Vanessa barely touched her food. The quieter she got, the more familiar dread crept into my chest. Finally, she set her fork down. "It sounds like a lot," she said softly. My mom immediately reached for her hand. "It does sound elaborate," she added, watching Vanessa's face carefully. I laughed awkwardly. "It's our wedding. We've been saving for 2 years." Vanessa looked down. "Mine was so small, I guess some people need more attention." "That's not what I'm saying," I replied quickly. "Yours was beautiful. This is just different." My dad cleared his throat. "Different how?" "Bigger venue, more guests. It's what Daniel and I want." No one responded. Outside in the driveway, my parents stopped me. "Vanessa's really upset," my mom said. "She feels like you're trying to outshine her." I stared at her. "I'm not competing with her. I'm just getting married." "You know how she is. She's sensitive. Can't you tone it down?" Toning it down meant fewer guests, smaller venue, less presence. "I've already booked everything," I said quietly, "and we're asking you to be considerate. If you go through with this," my dad said, crossing his arms, "we may not attend." I drove home shaking, telling myself it was just a scare tactic. They stopped answering my calls. 2 weeks later, I found out they were hosting a family brunch, the same weekend as my bridal shower. I wasn't invited. Vanessa posted photos online, smiling faces, mimosas, pancakes. The caption read, "Family is everything." Friends saw it. No one said anything, but I could see the pity. A week before the wedding, I ran into my mom at the grocery store. "Mom, please," I started. She turned cold instantly. "You made your choice, Maya," she said loudly. "Don't expect us to celebrate your selfishness." People stared. I abandoned my cart and cried in my car. 5 days before the wedding, my dad finally called. He acted cheerful, normal. Then he said, "We'll come, but we need something first." They wanted me to give a speech about family first. They wanted half my honeymoon fund for Vanessa. I said no. He hung up. What they didn't know was that I had been documenting everything for over a year. Texts, voicemails, guilt trips. My therapist suggested it to help me see patterns clearly. Daniel's family stepped in completely. His father offered to walk me down the aisle. His mother treated me like her own daughter. 2 days before the wedding, my Aunt Diane called. "They did this to me too," she said quietly. "I stayed silent. You don't have to." The wedding day arrived. The front row was empty, but the ceremony was beautiful. Halfway through the reception, my parents walked in, late, underdressed, smiling tightly. "We decided to forgive you," my mom said. I stood up calmly. "You didn't come to support me. You came because people started asking questions." I showed my dad my phone, a folder, evidence. "I see you now, and I'm done shrinking." They left. The room erupted in applause. That night, I danced with Daniel, surrounded by people who chose me freely. The next morning, Vanessa texted, "Hope you're happy." I didn't reply. For the first time in my life, their silence didn't hurt. It set me free. After my parents walked out of the reception hall, I sat completely still. My hands shook so badly that Daniel had to lace his fingers through just to steady me. Around us, glasses clinked and chairs scraped softly as guests tried to act normal. But something had shifted. A truth had been exposed, and everyone felt it. I realized I no longer cared what they thought. I excused myself and went to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, lifted my dress, and focused on breathing, counting tiles as my therapist had taught me. I wasn't crying. Instead, memories surfaced, moments I'd buried for years. Like when I was 10 and Vanessa forgot her lunch, and my mom drove back to school to bring it to her. When I forgot mine, it was told it was a lesson in responsibility. Or in high school, when Vanessa quit piano and was praised, while I kept playing violin even though I hated it, because quitting would make us look unreliable. Sitting in my wedding dress, it hit me. My parents hadn't just skipped my wedding, they had skipped me my entire life. When I returned, Daniel's mom hugged me silently. That alone healed something I didn't realize was broken. Relatives quietly approached me, some apologizing for believing my parents, others admitting they noticed the favoritism but stayed silent. One whispered, "I'm glad you finally chose yourself." The honeymoon was the first time I felt truly free from their expectations. No guilt, no negotiations, just peace. Vanessa texted, "You embarrassed Mom and Dad." I replied honestly, "I spent my whole life being understanding. This time, I chose myself." Then I blocked her. Back home, the fallout was quiet. Some relatives disappeared. My parents emailed, no apology, just disappointment. I didn't reply. I returned to therapy, not to cope, but to unlearn them. Slowly, I laughed more, slept better, stopped explaining myself unnecessarily. Months later, hosting friends, I felt it clearly. This was family. Not blood, not obligation, just people who showed up. Sometimes I still think of the empty front row. It hurts, but it no longer controls me. Walking away from conditional love isn't selfish. It's freedom.